This tutorial video is about how to log into 3D Printer OS and how to use your printer with it. Some people this will be new, some this will be a refresher, and it'll also go over some of our new updates. I'm Chris with iTech, and let's get going. So the first thing we need to do is navigate to our browser and open up a window. Click on the navigation pane and point your browser at cloud 3D printer 3dprinteros.com right here, and you may be prompted to log in if you don't already have your auto login settings in. Just enter your username and password, and this is the first screen that pops up. So you'll notice here at the top of my screen, if you're following my mouse, you'll notice that the top tool bar has these different sections to it. Every time you log in, the first section you'll start off at is the My Files section. And that's because this is basically where we're going to do most of our work in the system. Below that, you'll see three other tabs, starting with My Files on the left, My Projects in the middle, and you may or may not see My Slicing Profiles, depending on your level of access. Now, we are at the My Files section of 3D Printer OS. And what that is it's showing you what STL or design files you've uploaded and have not yet processed. If you've processed the design files, they'll be then located under the My Projects tab, which is, if you click on it, you'll see they're located here. You can scroll down and see many different files here. So, but getting back to My Files, because what we're going to do is go through the workflow of how to process each file as we add it into the system. So from here, we're going to do one of two things. We're going to say Add Files over here on the right, and we're either going to drag or drop a file, or we're going to choose a file from the file system. In my case, I'm going to navigate to where some of my STL files are here, and I will import them. Once successfully uploaded, we can click Save and go to My Files, and there we'll see it right at the top, highlighted in yellow or highlighted. So what I'd like to do is go over to the right hand side, and you'll see that there's three steps under these headings, under these columns. And each one of these kind of gives you an idea of how you need to think about your workflow. Step one is repair, and what that does is, if I select it, I need to select the type of printer that I have. In this case, I'll be using my FlashSorge Finder. And here's what it's going to do. Here's what that little app is going to do. It's going to move the object. It's going to rotate it so that it fits nicely on the build plate, and then auto resize. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to look for holes and errors in your design and fix them. So I'll just click Fix. And you'll notice that in the background, I switched over to the My Projects tab because we've processed that design file now. So going back to that, we know that every time we do an action after we upload a design file, it's now going to be located in the My Projects folder, most likely labeled something else. So if we look here, you can see that here's my original one on the bottom, and then my new one that says STL Magic Fix, the new design file, is on the top. So again, going with our columns theory from the My Files tab of step 1, step 2, step 3, second thing we want to do is click Layout. Now, if you've already designed this in something like Tinkercad, you probably know how you oriented it, and this might not be a necessary step for you. However, if you downloaded this from the internet, you may need to use Layout to scale, move, copy, paste, or add other files to your build area. So the basic STL editors here, we should change our printer first to what we're using, Finder, which you can see now here on the left. And you can see the basic utilities here: move, rotate, scale. Printer, you can move your camera around, and a few other things that you need to do. The easy, quick way to move your STL files or your object is to, if you hold down the right mouse button and move your mouse left and right, you can change your view, panning the camera, And then if you click on one of these planes, it's going to move your object in that direction. See, that's up and down, Z. So now I'm going to say on bed, center. And if I grab this one, I can move it this way. On bed, center. And then if I grab it right here, I can just nice and evenly move it around. It's about positioning and what's going to work out for you best. And we can also do things like scale. If we just grab a plane, we can scale it this way. We can scale it that way. Yeah, we can reset it. We can reset our scale. We can do it uniformly. You have to play around with it to see what works best for you. I'm going to reset the scale on bed, center. And then you would say save. If you want to add a new file to it, you would choose one of your files from here. Or you can go into the Projects tab and add another STL file from there. In my case, I'm just going to say cancel. Now I'm done the layout, I've done my repair, I'm still working on my fixed file up here. I'm going to say slice. That brings you up to the dialog box here, the slicing dialog box. So a few things, you're not going to see advanced, expert, or you might see price. But we got to make sure that first of all, going from the top down, that our printer is selected as our proper model. If you're attached to a work group already, you will most likely see your printer model there. Now on the right from there, this is going to be what quality we want. The reason standard quality comes up first is because 9 times out of 10, this is how you're going to print. If you're printing just basic shapes, squares, cubes, cylinders, things of that nature, you can go with a lower quality, which means it's a little bit taller per layer, and it's going to print just a bit faster. If you go high quality, that means you've got something that's small, really finely detailed, and you want to get the best quality you can out of the print job that you're having. But the drawback is it takes a lot longer, about 40% longer than standard quality to actually print. So if we select standard quality, that's pretty much what you're going to use. Now from here, we're going layer thickness. That is set in our profile already at standard quality at 0.2 millimeters. You do have the ability to adjust it by grabbing the slider bar and rolling it back and forth, or clicking on the number and changing it manually. Keep in mind that if you go up, it's going to be faster, but it's not going to have as much definition. If you go down, it's going to take longer and use a bit more material. Then the next thing down from the layer thickness is shell thickness. Shell thickness is the outside thickness of your object, so the exterior. That's also set to what I would say 3 shells, so 1.2 millimeters thick. On average, that's pretty good. If you're going any higher than that, that means you're making something mechanical like a pin or a pivot or a joint, and you might want to go a little bit thicker than that. 5 millimeters is incredibly thick, and you also have to think that shell thickness is either side of an object. So if you have a cylinder, you would have to think about it as a diameter in thickness, because if I went to 5, technically this is 2.4 millimeters of the overall diameter of a cylinder. The infill percentage is the amount of material that's on the interior connected to your shell. So this is set at 15, so we don't use a whole lot of material when we're slicing. If you want to go higher, it does get stronger, but it uses quite a bit more material and increases the time. 99% of the time, we're going to be printing in PLA, which brings me to the extruder temperature, which will be set at 220. We won't need to deal with that. If you have a heated bed on your printer, this will already be set as well. So the last few things that we need to know before we're ready to click slice is platform adhesion. When do I use platform adhesion? A lot of the time I've been setting up Raft lately, because what Raft does is it prints a complete separate entity that you remove and discard after your print in case your bed isn't totally level. What a raft does is literally builds a raft under your object. And the reason that this is here is because Again, if your bed levels or you have adhesion problems, what this will do is make itself a perfectly level surface in which to print your object on top of. The downside to it is it uses quite a bit of material, takes a bit of time to do, and you don't get a nice, smooth, or at least good texture under it most of the time. And a brim is simply one layer projected out from your object. So if you buy about 5 millimeters, so if you had like a really thin stick or twig or lamppost or something that you're printing in a scene, you would use the brim because then it would give it some more stability when printing, less likely to knock it over as your print is going on. This box will always be checked to recenter your object. If you can see in the dialog box here on the right, your object will always be centered if that box is checked. And lastly, we have this support option. So if you have something that has a lot of overhang greater than 45 degrees, you'll want to check this box. And then what will happen at the end of the print is you'll be left with this material the support material that it creates, which is almost like a scaffolding under any overhang that you will discard. But for this, we won't do that. So what we're going to do is click Slice and Toolpath Preview. And the reason we're clicking that instead of just Slice is because it'll bring us to the Toolpath Preview dialog box. I'm just going to change the camera angle. What we can do is drag the layer, showing us each layer, on down to layer number 1. Now, this is actually a very good example because as I get to layer 6 or 7, I can tell that at layer 3 it's actually not sitting flat on the print bed because it's not printing anything other than the tail of my object here, which makes the Toolpath Previewer an excellent way to audit your prints. So at layer 1, I have just this one part, which I want the actual whole bird. I want that part of the bird to be printing at layer 1, not at layer 5. So as an audit tool, before I go ahead and print this is an excellent way of finding out whether or not you've oriented your prints properly. And it's also a great tool to see that maybe the STL editor didn't quite catch that. So I know now that I have to fix that before I go ahead and say print. For this purpose though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click print anyway. I'm not actually going to print it, but then it gives us an idea of how we queue it. So when I click print, you'll see a list of printers that are available to you, and if there's none or there's some available, you would just simply click print or queue if there's already something printing or the printer's offline, and then you would be able to start it right away or start it later. If you have a camera attached to your printer, then you would just simply click the live view and you'd be able to tell right away. And that is when you will go to your printers tab and you'll be able to see what's actually printing or in the print queue. For instance, this school has something printing, 13%, and we can see that there's something queued afterwards up to it. So that is how the workflow that you're going to be used to when it comes to using 3D Printer OS. Thank you for watching.